All right, we are here, episode number 2, and I'm so excited for today because we're going to hear all about Becca's story and how she got to this place of being a business and money mentor. She has such an incredible story, and so I'm not even going to give you any hints. We're just going to get right into it. So, Becca, why don't you take us back to the beginning? How did you get started?
We're going to go back about 7 years. Mondo, my husband, and I got married 7 years ago this past October. And he had no debt, none, not even a penny. His car was paid off, all of the things. And I had $90,000 of debt in my name. And so this consisted of, I get this question a lot. It consisted of credit cards, a home improvement loan, student loans. What it did not include was a car payment. I did have a car payment, but I didn't include that in the debt because, that was something I had to have, right? I had to have a car to go to work. So I was thinking more consumer debt. So credit cards, home improvement loan that I had literally no business, no business pulling, and student loans. My student loans were $35,000 alone for 2 years of school. 2 years of school. Insane. So we got married and we both grew up completely in opposite ways when it comes to money. So I grew up in a family where it was make sure you save. You need to save just in case. If you can do it on your own, figure out how to do it on your own. There's no wasted money, right? And I used to think that was a scarcity thing, but I realized about a year ago, and this is the importance of rehashing your money story all the time. It's not like a one and done thing. A year ago, I was going through my story with someone and I realized my parents are not scarcity mindset. They value travel and experiences more than they have ever valued, like decorating their house or material things. Those things do not matter to them. What matters to them is taking us on vacation as kids, showing us different parts of the country. We went to different countries as kids. So that changed my perspective a bit. But that was my family, right? Save, save, save. Do not spend all your money. You never know when. And they also grew up with parents who survived the Great Depression. So that made a huge impact on how they learned about money. Mondo's family, on the other hand, views money as very fluid. Like money will always be coming. If you have the money and you need help, hire somebody. Buy the thing that's going to make your life easier. Do the thing it's just like totally opposite worlds, right? And so right off the bat when we got married, we realized this could be a huge point of contention in our marriage. And so we, as a gift to one another, we purchased a really popular financial program and we walked through it to get out of debt. And then I became an absolute psycho when it came to money, like psychotic, controlling every single dollar that came in this house. And I mean, literally every single dollar. He was working 14-hour shifts. I was a public school teacher. We both had part time jobs to pay off all this debt. We weren't having any fun as newlyweds. We weren't going on dates. We weren't going out to eat. We weren't vacationing. We weren't doing anything fun. Everything was about money and what we would be able to pay off with that money. What we quickly learned was that there's this cycle when you're only concentrating on debt payoff. And that is, let's say you get $500 and you're like, oh, yes, that's $500 extra. I can pay off this credit card. What you've forgotten is that you don't have any money saved. So when something else comes up, what will you do? You put another $500 on that credit card. And this cycle keeps you in this hamster wheel forever until you're making like 200 grand or something a year, which we were not. So I became psychotic about money. It was like, oh, we have $2 extra, put it towards debt. And I was sucking the life out of our marriage. I was sucking the fun out of our marriage. We weren't spending any time together. And then Two things happened. He came home one day from working 14 hours, and if you know me, I'm pretty sassy. I met him at the door, hands on hip and everything. Did you seriously spend $1 on a drink at work today? Because I checked our bank account 800 times a day, like a psycho, like a psycho does. And he had spent $1 with his debit card, and I was so angry because I had plans for that dollar. Do you see how crazy this is? Like how this literally consumed me night and day. It wasn't a fun little challenge that we were doing. It was my entire life at this point. And then the second thing that happened was we found out we were pregnant with our first child. And I was like, okay, between my husband's face when I yelled at him over $1 drink and knowing that we have to raise a child now, keep him alive, feed him, all of those things, we got to get it together. Like we're not going to stay married at this point, right? So I mean, it wasn't to that point, but it could have very easily gotten to that point. So we sat down together and we redid our financial goals. We did them together instead of me dictating what the goals were going to be. And he told me he wanted to be able to spend money. He wanted to be able to go out to eat. He wanted to be able to take me to a movie or, take our future kids to the zoo or to the beach or wherever, right? And those were things that I had considered we could do after all of that debt was paid off. It could take a long time. And then, your kid's 5 or 6 and you've not done anything fun for 6 years. It's just, I was in a pit. And so we redid those goals together. I let him be a part of it. And then we had weekly check-ins at first for I want to say 6 or 7 months, weekly check-ins. This is what's happening with the money. This is what we were able to do this week. Here's how much we saved. We started investing again. All of the things that we wanted to be able to do. And we were so much happier. Like so much happier. We were not flying through debt the way that we had been. However, we were enjoying each other's company and we knew we were going after several goals at the same time. So it just spiraled into a business. People were asking us, like, how are you doing this? I talked about it a lot in, my real life. So people would ask and I would help them set up a plan for them, for their family. And then they would send some of their friends. And it just kind of turned into like, oh, Becca is really good at like helping you chunk out your goals. You should talk to her. And so I thought one day, why am I not like, this is fun for me now. Why can't this be a business? And so I just started a business and it was helping moms get out of debt. And then as I'm running my own business, I realize nobody talks about finances in the business world. Nobody tells you how to open up a bank account for your business, how to create a line of credit in your business. What is profit? How do you know that it's your profit to take home? Nobody talks about any of that stuff. They only tell you you have money coming in, don't use it all on expenses, save 30% for taxes, keep the rest. Well, that's easier said than done. And so I dug into business finances and I created a course, Mind Her Business. And it's evolved over the last 2 years. But the goal is to teach women about not only their personal finances, but their business finances, because you cannot have messy personal finances and clean business finances. You cannot have clean business finances or messy business finances and clean personal finances. They are so intertwined. And so now really my goal, my mission is to help women understand the flow of money in their business so that there is money left for profit to use for their family, to take that vacation, to do the kitchen reno, to buy the car that they want or need, to purchase their dream house, like whatever the goal is. I want you to be able to understand money and feel excited about your ability to not only handle that money, but make decisions around that money without having to look around and ask people, what should I do? That you feel confident enough to use that money and to to really use it to further your financial dreams. So that is 10 minutes of how we got here.
I want to take you back for a second, because when you were talking about your family versus Mondo's family upbringing around money, you mentioned that his family was very much like hire the help, like invest. And I mean, that just like screams entrepreneur. And that's what his family is,
Yep.
correct? Like his dad owns businesses. He grew up around that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
growing up in that entrepreneurial environment shaped him in a different way.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I have genuinely never considered that until just now. Um, yeah, he grew up his family has owned businesses since the day he was born. So he has grown up in, like, literally hanging out inside those businesses, hanging out at home, hearing them talk about who they're hiring, what needs to be done in the restaurant. It's restaurant business. Um, like what inventory needs to be done, what supplies need to be switched out, does the floor need to be fixed, when are we going to do that? He's been a part of those conversations his entire life. And yeah, his outlook in the world is literally like, our sliding glass door is broken right now. And he's like, well, let's just call somebody. And I'm
Right.
like, but we could probably do it ourselves. And he's like, yeah, but that will be 2 weeks from now. Why don't we just call somebody today and it'll be done today? And so
Right.
there's still this back and forth between us because each of us feels like we have the solution. I still want to save money. That is ingrained in me. I still want to save money if I can. And he still wants all of his time and is willing to give his resources away because he wants all of his time. So,
Yes, that is such a powerful, like I hadn't thought of that either until this moment in this conversation. How many times have we talked about your journey and your story?
a million,
And
a
that's never
million.
come up. That's incredible. I want to take you back again to your that shift you made. So when you were your only goal was getting out of debt reduction for so
Mhm.
long. And then that moment at the door when you came home from work happened. You were expecting a baby, your priorities shifted, and so then you created a plan to allow you to chase multiple goals at once while still reducing debt. So what I want you to do is, can you share like a little bit about like how do you decide when you have multiple debts? You mentioned like school and consumer and credit cards and all these things. How did you make a decision on like, so where do you start if you're not going to be paying down all of them? What does that look like when you want to also be able to save for some fun and
Yeah.
experiences with your family?
Well, there are two schools of thought. If you go out and onto the internet, there are two schools of thought. And the one is the snowball method. Start with the smallest balance, work your way up to the largest balance. And then there's the avalanche method, which is start with the highest interest rate and work your way down to the lowest interest rate. None of those made me happy. Neither of them felt like, "Ugh, well, but that doesn't take into account my emotions. That's a black and white, very, it looks good on paper strategy. There was one in particular that was stressing me out every single day to look at. Every time I opened up the mail, I wanted to just like lay down and take a nap. It was so stressful. I started with that one. I didn't care what the balance was. I didn't care what the interest rate was. That one was making me stay awake at night, thinking about like, why do I still have this? Why, like, let's just get this one off the table and then I can figure out what we want to do from there. So that's what we did. And that's what I tell my clients a lot, Marlene. Is there one of these that's just like keeping you up at night, that you think about all day long? Don't think about the interest rate. Don't think about the balance. Like, which one gives you anxiety? And that's the one that we usually start with, because when you can get rid of that one, the weight has lifted off your shoulders a bit and you can think more rationally about the other debts that you have. And
Mhm.
so, and the other thing that I tell people, when you're chasing multiple goals at the same time, saving, investing, debt reduction, one of them needs to lead. You can do all of them, but there needs to be a lead goal. If your lead goal is debt, then maybe more of the extra money goes towards debt. You still have money going to savings and investing, or, whatever vacation funds, but you have to have a lead. So that way, you know what is most important to your family at that time. Can that lead change? 1,000%. So we found out we were pregnant with our daughter. I don't know. Max was like a year and a half. They're exactly 2 years apart. So that can't be right. But anyway, she came shortly after him, and we were still paying off debt. We took that off the table as lead, and we put saving as lead while I was pregnant with her, because we didn't know what the hospital bill was going to look like. We didn't know. We had to buy formula for Max, and that was really expensive. We didn't know if we'd need formula for her, all of those things. So you adjust the lead as needed. Um, and whatever your family goals are, this is where check-ins with your spouse or your partner is crucial, because then you can adjust the goals and you can adjust the strategy based on your season of life. And that is one of the biggest pitfalls of these financial courses that are like, do this step 1, do this step 2, do this step 3, do not pass go until these have been done, I think that is the biggest, that's what made me a lunatic with money, because I was like, no, we're in step 1 or step 2. You can't go to step 3 until you're done with step 2. So that's what I would say. And it has helped me personally not be so anxious about money. I don't look at my bank account every day now. I do keep an eye on it, do not get me wrong, but I don't feel the need to check in with it 6 times a day, like, what has changed? Because I know my numbers. I know what's happening in my bank account. If something has happened that I don't know about, it's fraudulent activity, and I will realize it immediately. So, yeah, family goals are a big deal to me.
And what comes up for me, like I've learned from you, obviously you've coached me in my money. And when you say your goal is, debt reduction, and then it shifts into something else and it shifts into something else, it's not about like having this big meeting with your spouse and having to like recreate the wheel every time that you have a shift in priorities. It's like when you have a system to track your money, when you get really comfortable tracking your money, I have found that now if I want to make an adjustment, it's like literally just changing a number in my spreadsheet, or just like a quick check-in with my husband about like, hey, I think we should probably do this instead of that for a little while. And then that's it. Like that's the whole of the changing of priorities. It's not this big project every time. Once you know how to manage your money, once you are like literate in financial planning.
And the confidence, when you're confident knowing what you're looking at.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that so many women still feel terrified to open their bank account. They don't even want to look at it. And
Right.
so knowing what you want to do with your money makes it feel easier to look at your money. And
Mm,
no, it doesn't have to be an hour-long meeting. I have ADHD, that's not happening. My husband really couldn't care less about finances. I mean, not in a hateful way. He's just like, I trust you. You know what you're doing. Tell me what we're doing.
right.
And so, no, it was like a 45-second to 2-minute conversation. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's switch it up. And we were done. And I adjusted the numbers on our tracker, and that was the end of it.
So, okay, so that brings us to today. So you got yourself out of $90,000 of debt. How long did that take you?
5 years.
5 years.
Mhm.
And then what, like, where are you at today? Like, what would you tell somebody about your journey to now?
We have debt. It's strategic debt. Sometimes you just have debt. Like there's nothing inherently bad with debt. If
Right.
you are consumed by it, if it's taken over your whole
Reckless.
life, yeah, that's where you get into a hole that it's really hard to dig out of. We calculate when we're going into debt, like it's a calculated risk for us. We know exactly how much we'll be able to pay back. We know exactly how long it's going to take us. We know exactly how soon we could have it paid off early. It's for us leveraging someone else's money so that we don't have to clean out our emergency fund in
And we're
order.
not talking consumer debt here.
Mm-mm.
Right.
No, I do have credit cards, and I use credit cards every single month, and they are paid off every single month. And I have credit cards that carry a balance, and they are zero balance or 0% interest credit cards. It's strategic at this point. Now it is when you know your numbers and when you have a system to track what you have and exactly what debts you have, it's so simple to be much more responsible with credit cards and with consumer debt. And you can plan for things like that. So I would just tell people, if you need a place to start, I just want you to open your bank account. Just open your bank account and look at what has come in and what's leaving, and how do you feel about that? Are there some subscriptions in there that you literally had no idea that you had anymore? Okay, let's start there. You can start small. You don't have to do an overhaul. Money mirrors fitness in so many ways. If you overhaul your entire life, like throw out everything in your fridge and your pantry, and you buy only organic, grass fed, like gluten free, dairy free, everything day one, and you want to go to the gym for 2 hours day one, and you want 10 hours of sleep, don't forget you need 100 ounces of water. What happens? After day one, you're like, screw that. I'm going to Wendy's. Like, this is not working for me. Money is no different. If you overhaul your entire life when it comes to your spending, and a lot of people think when they're working on their money, they're like, well, I can't spend money anymore. Not true. Absolutely not true. So start small. If it feels hard, start small. Then take the next step and write everything down, record what's coming in and what's leaving. And then you just take it from there.
I could talk to you all day about this, and there is so much more we could dive into. So I would love our listeners to share some feedback. What would you like to hear Becca dive into? Do you want her to talk about like more about what that strategic debt was, especially because for her, I know a lot of it was business investments. Would you like to hear more about the different ways to get out of debt, the snowball method, and the different methods that you can use in your circumstance? Do you want to hear, I mean, I know I want to almost go into all the things today, but I know we want to keep these as short and sweet as possible for people to be able to listen on the fly. But Becca also had, I know just over a year ago, like 5 appliances and the car all broke like within a few months. So there was like thing after thing after thing. But because she had this confidence, there was just so much choice allotted to her, so much freedom in that what could have been a very stressful situation. So I think we can do a whole episode on that. So I'm going to put that on the list because I know that that is something that is so common. I experienced that myself shortly after, and thank goodness you were able to walk me through it. So if there's something specific that you would like to hear more of, share that with us. Come and hang out on Instagram, DM us, or leave that feedback for us in your favorite place to find us. But thank you for sharing that story today, Becca. It is so inspiring. You making that decision and trusting yourself that you could find your own way is like genuinely what has changed my life, because you were able to pass that on to me and obviously countless clients that you've been able to support. And so this is what we want to share. Like, your story matters. Your personal journey matters, and there's a ripple effect that happens. And not just if you're a coach and you're talking about you supporting your clients, but I mean, think about how that's going to affect Becca's children and their children, that she was able to take back control of her financial confidence and then financial future and build these skills to be able to pass on to other people. So it's a beautiful snowball effect to be able to give away. Any last thoughts for our listeners today?
Ripple effect. You have already started a ripple effect, especially with your kids, whether you are doing it on purpose or not.
Oh,
Whether it's intentional or not, the ripple effect has started as soon as they're born, right? So if your goal is to change the ripple, to to redirect the ripple in a way that you feel confident teaching your children or your family, it doesn't have to be kids, your friends, then intentionality. It's all about being very intentional with your money. You don't have to be perfect, but just know that you have already started the ripple effect, whether you realize it or not.
That is a really eye opener for me. That one really landed today. There's a ripple effect whether you mean to or not.
Yeah.
So you get to decide what that ripple effect looks like, and you have full control and power over that and the
Yeah.
results that come.
Well,
I
the
love
next episode, we're diving into Marley's story. So we'll see you over there.